This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Riley Smith.
Welcome into Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Riley Smith. Today is Thursday, January 8th of 2026, and we're so glad you can join us for today's show. In today's episode, I'll be speaking with Jason Cope. He's the co-founder of PowerPollen up in Ames, and they had an exciting announcement with the company Oxbow to get their pollination technology onto their machinery. We'll also have a check of the closing markets with Cory Bratland of agmarket.net. But first, here's that conversation with Jason Cope.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Pleasure to be here this morning, Riley. PowerPollen is a one-of-a-kind company. Let me start with that. We started this company back in 2015 with the idea that if we could store pollen from row crops and keep it highly viable, the things that we could do with that stored pollen to improve agriculture would be, I dare say, immeasurable in terms of the reliability of agriculture and the productivity of agriculture. So we're an Iowa-based company that is focused on, first, the ability to store pollen for long-term, which we actually are at. Pollen normally dies within 30 minutes, just as a benchmark for you. And we are at 6 years and counting for how long we're able to store this pollen and keep it highly viable. But essentially, we've built technologies around the stored pollen to go out and collect, preserve, and apply pollen at scale. And so for aspects of seed production, for an example, for hybrid corn seed production being a prime example, we're able to store and apply pollen in ways that helps to increase yield and decrease costs of goods.
So, Jason, when it comes to that announcement with Oxbow and having that integrated technology on Oxbow power units through this partnership, first off, what kind of led to that partnership, and what does this mean moving forward for that pollination technology?
This was a really logical partnership for PowerPollen. If you look at Oxbow, they're already active within the footprint of hybrid corn seed production, along with a number of other production realms for agricultural equipment. For PowerPollen, we've been working in the background on building equipment for collection and application of pollen for some time. And being in the neighboring fields where Oxbow, as an example, they build detasselers. So they're working already with seed producers to go out and detassel females in seed production fields and then do male destruction. It's really logical to add this technology to their toolbar since they're already, number one, present with seed producers, and number two, have a great technology that the seed producers already go to as a dominant player in this industry.
So I know a big part of it too is, it's allowing seed companies to directly purchase, integrate, and scale the system. I know that there's kind of a lot here talking about the ownership of the technology, being able to run it on their schedule. What are some of the benefits there of having that flexibility and making it to where there is a lot of more choice in that decision?
Yeah, certainly a good example. If you're a producer, very best way to have the best results is the technology in your own hands. And by owning this equipment and being practiced in what this process looks like, it allows you to ensure that you're collecting pollen at the right time. And then even more important, applying pollen at the right time to really maximize your yield. If you look at situations, the norm, if you will, in seed production, it's all about timing. And so often, the male and female aren't timed well. So the male's shedding its pollen when the female's not ready. And so you get a loss of yield. And this is just really the norm when it comes to seed production. But as you can imagine, with the ability to collect that pollen, hold it, and wait for the female to be in the perfect state to apply to, you take all that guesswork out of the equation. And now you have a system where you basically go out and apply the pollen at the right time to maximize the yield and reduce your risk.
So when it comes to the technology itself and applying that to an Oxbow unit, is this an option that's available kind of solely on new units, or can this also be retrofitted onto pre-existing units?
So there is an option to retrofit. We've worked closely with Oxbow with their existing 5180 chassis platform. There's a number of those already out there working in the industry. So take a 5180 detasseler as an example. This can be retrofit onto one of those power units, which is great because then you can even consider detasseling, collecting, and applying all with the same power unit, which is a bigger bang for the buck, if you will, in terms of somebody's ownership of one of those units.
And Jason, you mentioned as well this being a unique first of its kind partnership. Moving forward from this partnership, what does this mean for the future of pollination technology?
Well, one of the things PowerPollen's really focused on doing is not only taking the risk out of out of pollination technology and reducing the cost of goods, but really at the end of the day, increasing the product options. If you take a poor male as an example, there are poor males out there that really don't make the cut to go produce products with natural pollination just because the cost to produce the product with the poor male is too high because the productivity is so low. Doesn't mean it doesn't make a fantastic product. Imagine using a technology like PowerPollen. Now the quality of the male is not nearly as important for the overall productivity that you get. So essentially, you're increasing your product portfolio potential, or your genetic diversity is another way to look at this. I think also the longer reaching ramifications, we started in corn, but imagine this technology in rice and wheat, two crops that aren't simple to produce hybrids from. But also the impact of having hybrids in rice and wheat is immense in terms of the benefits that you can get. So as you can imagine, PowerPollen's also active and working with rice and wheat to make the hybrid production process in those crops just as easy as it is for corn.
All right, Jason, lots of great information today. For anyone who would like to get in touch with PowerPollen and just learn more about the technology and also look into getting some of that technology on an Oxbow unit, how can they do that?
Well, I'd welcome them to take a look at our website. It's www.powerpollen.com. Take a look at our technology and reach out to us if you have interest. Love to have a discussion about how we can help.
Thanks again to Jason Cope, the co-founder of PowerPollen, for joining us on today's show. And we'll go ahead now and take a look at the closing markets with Cory Bratland of agmarket.net. Cory, what do we see going on in the grain markets today?
Hey, Riley, how we doing today? Grains were a little choppy today. We started out a little higher on corn, 1 to 2 cents. Traded most of the day about a penny and a half higher. We did kind of fall a little lower on the end of the day, ended up down a half a cent to a penny. Soybeans, they spent most of the day, unchanged to down just a couple cents, and they ended the day about 5-6 cents. Now, we did have an announcement from China that they bought another 132,000 metric ton of soybeans. So that's going to put them up at our estimate up around that 10 to 10.5 million metric ton of the 12 that they said they would buy. So they're kind of getting closer to meeting that quota. So the question is going to be is, will we see them continue to buy? Because, we are into a new year now, and their agreement is to buy another 25 million metric ton this year. But my feeling though is that we will see that those purchases maybe closer to later this summer into closer this fall. So, but overall, pretty quiet day on the grain prices as just the traders are getting ready for this USDA report coming Monday morning.
And with that WASDE report, the first of the new year, we know that January tends to have a little bit more of an active report. Is that the case for this month's report?
Yeah, the January 12th report, it's always a big one. There's just so many moving parts in it. What will the USDA do with planted acres? What will they do with harvested acres? Will they adjust the yield up or down? Will they adjust the demand up or down? So we've got just a lot of moving parts on this thing. So, we may have the yield right, but what about the harvested acres? What about demand? So yeah, it's definitely kind of a game changer in general, year in and year out. Last 5-6 years, we typically see around 15 to 20 cent trading ranges on corn. Soybeans can be north of 30 to 40 cents trading ranges just on that report day alone. So yeah, we're definitely looking for some movement here coming Monday.
And then over on the livestock side of things, how did cattle and hogs trade today?
Yeah, cattle were kind of interesting. They started out the morning real strong, $1.50, $2 higher. Same way with feeder cattle. Mid morning, they sold off. We're down, spent most of the day down $1, and then they kind of come back here towards the end and ended up about $1.50 higher on these live cattle, feeder cattle up a couple bucks. So cattle in here feel like they're just starting to get a little bit overdone to the upside. Probably due for a little bit of a correction. Overall, big term, they still look very favorable. Demand is still very strong. I am hearing, cash this week as they kind of expected to be up north here around that 234, 235 or so. So if that happens, yeah, I think, your downside is going to be pretty limited here in the short term. Hogs, kind of similar there. They've had a nice run up here over the last, 4 or 5 weeks. Now we're starting to kind of run out of gas here a little bit, probably due for a little correction there, just technically speaking on the charts.
All right, Cory, lots of great information today. For anyone who would like to get in touch with agmarket.net for more marketing info, how can they do that?
Yeah, head on over to our website, which is agmarket.net, and you can get a hold of us there.
All right, Cory, thanks again for the analysis as always, and we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you much.
That again was Cory Bratland of agmarket.net. We'll take a look at how the numbers closed through the market window at iowaagnet.com.
At the close, March corn up 7 even at 444 and a half. March soybeans up 16 and a quarter at 1062 even. March soybean meal up 3.90 at 299.90. Soybean oil up 57 cents at 49.87. Chicago wheat up 6 even at 512 and a half. Kansas City hard red wheat up 5 3/4 at 520 3/4. March oats up 6 and a half at 304 and a half. On the Merc, February live cattle down 12 at 235.87. January feeders up 287 at 358.97. February lean hogs up 205 at 86.15. February pork cutout went unchanged at 93.75. And January class 3 milk down 3 cents at 15.04.
That's been a check of the markets on Ag Matters PM, and that also brings us to the end of today's show. You can find all of our daily ag news content on our website at iowaagnet.com. From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, I'm Riley Smith. On behalf of Mark Magnuson and Dustin Huffman, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.